Open space update. I have some great news for you. The plan has been assembled. It's going to be sent to our office from Old Colony Council. We're going to distribute it to the various boards for their comment. And so that's going to happen within the next week. So I just heard from Mr. Watson. He called up. So that's great news. So I'd like to move to the next item, and I'd like to take it out of order. And look at item 84, DEP number 84-475, a notice of intent of Remus and Danuta Gavalis, 92 Central Street, for the removal of trees in buffer zone in back of house for installation of solar panels on roof and planting new trees and vegetation at 92 Central Street. So, Mr. and Mrs. Gavalis, do you want to join us?
Okay. We basically, we had a house just over a year and a half, and we were told about the ditch, the runoff ditch, but nobody really mentioned that this was.
You have to do this.
You know, so we had no idea, and then we also discovered that. The buffer zone was 100, which is all our land anyway.
Right.
You know, so, but we had, we were, during the summer, we were cutting down the trees, and it seemed fine until the very last one, which was supposed to go into the buffer zone, but it crossed over the line. We retrieved that tree and brought it back, you know, chopped it down, brought the wood out. I have begun planting fruit trees and other vegetation that I plan to, you know, for the land in the buffer zone. And as far as the trees, that was basically, especially the pine trees, were because we couldn't have the sunlight. So they asked if we, you know, in fact, that very last one I was going to save, but they said that one has to go. So, and since it was on my land, I had no idea that there was anything to do on that. And like I say, it was the neighbor who came out when the last tree fell within a minute. He was on the phone with somebody, I don't know who, but basically somebody came out, I guess, on Monday to look at it, said not to cut any more trees, which we haven't, and we don't plan to. We just plan to build up the area, you know, and we kind of like it because it's a little open and we can put our own things in. It's just that we took down the pines.
Right. So it's kind of what they call a vista pruning, right? You were cutting down the tree. Or one of them, were some of the trees dangerous? Some of them
were like already old and look, you know, they're going to fall off.
On your house.
I was afraid it might be. There's one now still by the stream ditch that it's halfway on my neighbor's and halfway on mine, but you know, they tend to corrode or something. But yeah, like always get branches come falling down or something like that.
So is this in response to an emergency order? Did somebody go out?
I went for a cease and desist.
A cease and desist. Oh, sorry, Jerry. Yep.
And like you said, he was already done. So.
Right.
And then I told him they couldn't do anything, and then that's when he started his process to come before the board.
Right. Oh, gotcha. Okay. And I'm looking at the map here, mortgage inspection map. Where's the resource area here? Is it the drainage ditch that you thought was the resource area?
Dennis,
yep.
You have, that's from Mass DEP, but do we have a filing for this originally, Nancy?
Yeah.
Because I think that might be a real help. I didn't have it to look at. I think you have a picture from it. It looks like that there is some kind of stream, but there's also a wetland behind the property, according to the DEP.
Ah, okay.
So,
The wetland is on the side, and the place that we, down the street was in the buffer zone.
Yeah, well, this is from the DEP website. It's not always quite accurate where this line is, where the lines are, but it's fairly accurate. This is your lot, I think, and what it's showing is that ditch and where there's a wetland back there. It might be a swamp. I haven't been out there.
Okay,
But I wanted
the
to
map-
look at what got submitted, because they probably did an actual delineation. I think that might make more sense. Right? Because that's, so this doesn't, let me look at it. You're the best.
Oh, no, you leave it there so you can see it.
Yeah, but Joe's pretty good at looking at what the lines mean.
This is 58.
Joe.
Central Street, that's 58.
No, 58 right here.
Plymouth Street.
58.
It's
Plymouth Street is 58.
Old Abington. Plymouth Street. I don't know the routes.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, yeah, that's
No,
the,
see, that's what they,
Yeah,
I
actually,
went
it looks
to,
like the house was flipped.
they cut all
so
in here.
are we on this lot, or are we
So
on
they
that
could do
lot?
is, what you call
This
it?
lot.
Yeah, that's what I
Oh,
thought.
no, that's right, that's right.
That's right, okay.
Then they started all the way and laid the tree in the other guy's property.
Yeah, that's the reason.
They don't sh-
So the wetlands are
Right
back here, right?
Right here.
Right here.
This is their property?
Right.
And then he has
They
here a
got the
limit
screen
of
that goes right down here and
100-foot
goes
buffer
under the
zone
driveway.
right
Yep.
there. You see that?
That's where they had a
got
floods a
flagged
couple
all
years
the
ago,
way
but I guess I
through.
think they fixed the problem.
Yeah.
Okay. So the trees were up here.
The wetlands as it comes into, onto the street on the left-hand side of your property. Is that right?
Yeah.
This is an intermittent stream, so they have you have a bridge that goes over an intermittent stream.
This is 92, not 96, right? What, 92, yeah. This file has both 96 and 92 in it, that's why I'm seeing if there's anything else.
I got, my only question is, when the pine trees grow some more, will they have to be taken down because of the solar panel?
Well, we're not gonna plant any pine trees.
No, the ones that are existing.
I don't think they will be in the way,
Okay.
because we had the people come and look. Like I said, it was on that last one, that they said, you know, would, and like I said, it was on my land, I
So he's
Right,
putting the
no, I,
solar
yeah,
panels
I
down here.
understand completely.
Real close to.
But I know,
Are you seeing anything
my
back here?
land is all buffer
Wetland?
zone.
This
And
here.
Right.
Right there?
This stream,
in the back,
but I'm not
when
seeing
you're looking into the
anything.
forest, on the left is where the ditch is going and where, the
Right, which is
wetlands
where-
are.
Would be,
And we're not touching anything there.
Right.
right.
see, you're not working in the wetlands. No work is
No.
done in the wetlands.
The tree fell into.
Oh, I
These are-
see.
I think these are topographical lines, so.
Here's the wetlands right here,
Right, it's
There's
just,
nothing.
right through here.
Now, how did you retrieve it? You just,
We cut it
Yep.
in pieces and brought it back.
Lift it
Water it.
Well, here's wetlands right
Well, it's
here.
our land anyhow.
Which
but
is
if we
over
brought it-
on this property.
Right, right.
so
now
where
what do
where
we do
did the
with
trees
this?
come down? Where on the map did the trees come down? So that we're all sort of on.
Back of the house.
The back of the house?
Yes.
Back of the house.
Back where, how far back do you think you were, where you took the trees down?
Up until, I believe, within, the other person, my neighbor, has land that goes by. See, that it cuts like this. So we were working
So
within
here it
our
is.
land in the buffer zone. Oh,
This is 96, I believe, so this is how old.
This is your land?
Yes.
Yeah. So, and so you're, and the stream is here.
Stream is
right.
So you, where did you take the trees down?
Right here.
Like over here.
Over here?
Yeah, where his land, well,
So they're, okay, I just wanted to get an idea.
well,
Yeah.
it-
It's
it-
right
down
before
there.
the-
Oh, right down in
there,
here?
Right here, this-
No.
Okay, oh,
No, this
that,
is well, honey.
okay, this is,
This is right side, this is left side. So tree was over there someplace.
When
And
you
he
leave the tree
spoke
down and-
down.
Mm-hmm.
the other
Right.
guy's property.
Oh, so the tree that went on the other guy's property?
No, the wrong side.
The tree,
Wrong
the
side.
tree fell
Oh, This
into
tree
the
fell
wet-
into the wetlands
But
here.
it was not on his property. It was
Right.
Okay.
back here.
All right.
in other words, and we retrieved it.
So the trees are down,
So
down
it's,
here, trees out. in
Yeah,
back.
right
So-
behind the house, it drops off.
Right here.
Yeah, so it was within the buffer zone in through here.
Okay, and there's the line.
Right.
So
How
the-
far away do you think they are from the wetlands line? Or the stream, where they took the trees down?
That'll be right here, Jerry.
Oh, they're not,
It's right there.
Well,
well, they did all that right here. They said that,
This is the wetlands, this is the
That's
wetlands
the
line.
flagged wetlands.
See the flag
there.
wetlands line, and it goes up? So the trees are up in this area, are they
Yeah.
like 10 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet, right
Well,
there?
he probably went back 30 feet from the back where they stopped the lawn. And what they did is they filled in the back and then they dropped it off, probably drops it off 5 feet suddenly. They didn't go any further. Then he went and cleared beyond that to get what he told
So
us.
even back down
That's
to
the
the
deal.
envelope line typical.
So if this is the wetlands area, then he's probably right in here, where we took it out. Like you said, the buffer zone.
He's in the buffer zone, but he's probably at
Oh,
least
right.
10 feet away.
Yeah, well, and you said that you were planting trees?
I started planting some fruit trees that wouldn't grow
You-
high.
You're not supposed to do anything in the wetland. I mean, that-
Well,
Well, he's not in the wetlands, he's in the buffer
I mean,
zone.
buffer zone, yeah.
But even then, we have jurisdiction, you know, just, you know,
I
he
can-
really
I
wasn't.
I mean, the plan, a plan,
I
do
can stop what
you have any,
happened.
do you have any, a plan of what you did, how you put them? You write it down?
Right on the edge of where my, where the woods were, right along the edge.
Right in here.
Well, of my, no, well.
Use the big plan.
Like over here.
Well, yeah, but the tree, in other words, my yard is like,
Planting trees,
Yeah.
yes, and where was the planting trees?
Right in there, you planted it?
yeah. more or
Oh,
less
all right,
like-
and then, you've been told that you don't have to take any more down, like
Yeah,
Michael
no,
asked you.
Right,
yeah,
right.
Yeah, so that the solar will be all set.
Yeah.
Yeah,
My other question, Mr. Chairman, would be, is there a restriction on what they can plant in the buffer zone?
That's what my
The
question.
wetlands would be, or?
there's a,
Normally,
No,
you,
yeah.
and normally close to the wetland, you'd like to see species that are
Natural,
natural.
native.
Natural to the-
Right, I mean, my comment would be that I would like to see at least, you know, what's back, 20 or 30 feet, that they have, they might have taken the trees out, to see most of that just go back to a natural growth, because I think that would be the right answer, because they are near the, I don't want to even get into the whole river protection district thing, but I'm not sure this one is a map.
Right,
USGS
although
map.
is there a river here? Are we talking about a river?
There is.
it's a.
But they started off small.
But it's
Yeah, well,
it's shown on the
they-
DEP map,
When they
is
were
it,
built- when
it's
they
really
were
whether
building.
it's on the USGS map or not, and I don't,
And
let
is
me
it,
look at the
is there
final.
water there all year round?
Pretty much, well, when it rains or something in the summertime,
Right.
now it's kind of frozen. So it's almost like a little stream or
A little stream.
river. And it runs on the side of my property. In the back, it runs into my property, but that's all, that we don't touch.
Right.
The vegetation, and it goes under, there's a bridge for our driveway, and it goes under that, and then it goes up to the road, and it kind of goes to the other side of the road.
And of course, that's the only reason that you're here with us tonight, is because the Conservation Commission that each town has looks after the water supply, really, and that's why we have a protection. We're supposed to protect the water and keep an eye on it, and wetlands that support that water. Water supports the wetlands, I suppose, but the wetlands all support the water, and so that was an issue. I saw in Jerry's enforcement order, he said no more removal of trees. So how many trees do you think you took down?
Probably 9.
9. And were those in the,
No, like 3 or 4.
Oh, as far as the pine trees, yeah, about 4.
Yeah, 3 or 4. because
3 or 4 pine?
So the rest were just scrub?
It's mostly scrub, yeah.
So did you take out more than just the trees and the scrub? Like, did you take out brush, and did you dig anything up, or did you just
Cleaned it up.
cleaned it up?
Yeah,
Yeah,
just
that's
Just
all.
took the trees. And it says clean-up area on or near neighbours' yards. So presumably what he meant there is just taking the wood away. So you did take the wood away from the area that you cut down. And this was done in the, what you call the buffer zone. It wasn't done in the wetlands that we could see. Okay.
Like I said, that last tree fell into wetlands, but we retrieved it and just to make sure everything was okay.
All right.
As a matter of fact, if anybody wants some lumber, we have a stack of it.
So the first question I have is, did we ratify this enforcement order?
Yes.
We did, right, okay. Okay, so we're all set there.
This is a picture of the stream.
Oh, it's a beautiful, is that your house? That's a beautiful house.
Beautiful house.
So that's the stream. Okay, that's the stream. So that could be called a stream, I think, at the very least.
That's in front of it.
And there's actually a culvert there, I see.
Yes,
Is that a drain?
and you can
or
see it
culvert?
on the drawings. There's a detention basin or something on the neighbor's property.
That's not your house?
But that's the
That's
stream.
not their house.
That's
Oh, but
the
that is the stream.
It's
Oh,
their
right.
neighbor's
Yeah,
property.
this stream
Oh, I
actually
see,
goes,
I see.
this would be Central Street, yeah, this is the stream.
Right,
They have a bridge that's right here to get onto the property, and the stream goes through front of their property into the neighbor's property, and then back out onto their property again.
yeah. And you said there was one more tree that you wanted to take down, or no? You're all set?
It
No,
was
they-
the
they
last
s-
tree
they-
that seemed to
Right,
everybody above.
okay.
They said that there was one that might come down on its own. It looks like it's, so that would be the distressed tree.
Right. Is there, is there a danger to your house or anybody from that tree?
Not at this point. Everything, it was before the growth of it was curved and everything. And
Okay, so that's why you left that,
that's
because
why,
it's not
you
a
know, like
danger.
even as planned, we were supposed to go, it ended up going the other way. And
Right, okay. Well,
My suggestion would be to, do you have wood chips left over or anything? Just maybe to, no, does the slope go down into the buffer zone? Your land is like this? Your backyard?
It's built up.
Your backyard's built up. If I would just suggest you just throw some wild seed down there on the slope, and that'll hold the slope, and it'll just come back natural. That would be my suggestion.
That's a good
Excellent.
suggestion.
that sounds good.
The seed, you can get it any place. And what you want to just get low-growing type seed, like a clover or something like that. That way you don't have to worry about mowing it.
And then eventually the natural,
Yeah.
the natural
Yes.
It'll come
crosser will
back.
take over.
Yes, it will.
Yeah.
But this will hold it from any erosion.
Okay, I see what.
Might want to wait until it snows.
Yeah, I wait till it thaws.
Yeah. Read the label.
Okay, this is a notice of intent, right?
Right.
So we're gonna have to,
So we issue orders, and we could put in the orders a suggestion, which is really what the commission should do, make a recommendation of some kind of suggestion of the slope in the spring, if possible. And what I'll do is, are there any more questions?
Yeah, one more
Yeah.
question. Do you guys have any intentions do you want to plant more fruit trees near the house, or was that ever like your long-term wanting to do that?
No, we just thought it was a good idea to put something to keep from
Right.
eroding.
Then the only question I'd have for Mr.
And
Chairman
nothing
would
that
be,
would grow too high.
would they have to come back in front of us again if they wanted, say, did want to plant some fruit trees or something else? Would that be something we could?
Not if it was on the existing,
Not within the buffer zone, I
Yeah.
think.
Okay.
it'd be fine.
I think that it's not an issue. What do you think? Obviously, you cannot do anything in the wetlands, but in the buffer zone, I can't see. I understand why some people might be reticent about it because it might be might be worried of invasive
Right.
species coming in and then literally the wind taking it into the wetlands. So you have to balance that. But I think if it's close enough to your house, going on your map, I can't think that would be an issue. Taking down the other tree might be a reason for coming before the commission. And you can actually ask for an emergency order on that.
If
Is
that
right?
tree ever decides, like, it
Oh,
looks
on the
like it's
side?
they're coming down, then you can just,
That's kind of like it borders with my neighbor and me. And we didn't want to touch it because we felt like.
Fences
if we
are good
did anything
neighbors.
to it,
right.
It might go the wrong way.
But in the future, if you do notice that tree is getting any worse, you can just come in for an emergency order and, send somebody else and say, yeah, go ahead, whack it down.
Well, we're not sure if it's our tree or theirs.
Oh, really?
Right.
It's like right on.
Like
the-
having big trees. And
So
yeah,
he's doing an order. Do you have that?
On this, okay?
But I think, for me, it's more the lack of disturbance in the buffer
In the
zone,
buffer zone.
especially near the wetland, and the fact that, you don't bring any fill back there. That would be, I understand. Being a new homeowner with a wetland in your backyard, you probably just didn't understand. So,
Well, and it's funny, but, they said that the wetlands are supposed to be marked, but we never found any marks.
Oh,
In fact,
little
after all
flags?
this,
Yeah.
We finally discovered that there is.
I see, it's actually flagged in the map, but, I mean, I don't know how old that map is.
2005. So they're long since gone.
2005, yeah, so it's long. Well, what I might do is, can I have, are there any more comments, questions? So we might have a vote to close this meeting and then do the order. Is that right, Kathy?
Yes.
Yes, okay. And I'm going to pass these out because, as we all know, I usually like to lean on them and ask you about the orders. But we're going to pass that. So we're going to close, we'll have a vote to close the meeting. I'm just going to borrow one. And then we're actually going to do the orders right now, if that's okay. So do I have a motion to close this meeting?
Motion to close.
Thank you, Mike. And a second?
Second.
Have another one.
Okay, Joe. All those in favour?
Aye.
Unanimous. Now, looking at Form 5, Order of Conditions, we'll fill that out and we look at the standard order. And, this project is for DP number 84-475, 92 Central Street. We find that it is an area pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, the protection of flood control, because there's water, and wildlife. Find that it's actually bordering vegetated wetlands. And under the general conditions, we're going to include all those general conditions. And we look to the actual standard order of conditions. So we actually have a set of order of conditions that we, kind of a checklist. And we look at the ones from A1 through A6, which is erosion and sedimentation controls. And those would be applicable in that although the trees have already been taken down, we want to keep the area as is, except that we are going to make a recommendation about seeding. So do you think that, I do not think that a siltation fence barrier is necessary. That's A1.
I actually don't think A1 to A5
Okay.
are appropriate and only A6, but
And A6 is all activities on the wetland side of siltation barrier are prohibited. So we're really reading into that. All activities on the wetland side are prohibited. Okay. Drainage and runoff are B, and I don't think that really applies. Taking down trees is an issue with drainage, but I don't think it really applies at the moment. D1, do you agree?
I agree.
D1 through 4 is surface and groundwater quality control. Again, I don't think that it really applies. That's where you bring something in. E is wetland replication plans. That would normally be an issue if you'd actually gone into wetlands. You were only just taking some wood out. So I don't believe that that applies. Do you agree?
yes.
Okay. On F is wildlife habitat protection. Again, it's not an issue. G is on-site conditions. I think we're going to move through that. I would not apply those either. Do you agree?
I
or no?
would cite G2 on that one.
G2.
All waste products need to be moved, stumps, et cetera.
Just don't use waste products, right? And then we look at H, which is administrative conditions. And there, H2 is that this order runs with the land. So even if you sold your land to another person, they would have to take cognizance of this order. So I would think H2 applies. Do you think there's any other orders that apply?
H4. Oh, never mind, that's just for construction work. That's going to occur.
A lot of these are written for construction sites. Yeah.
H6, because they have to submit for, oh no, they don't have to do a PE.
Well, actually, we already have plans, and they haven't, I think.
We don't need a PE.
So I think, so we only are talking about H2, which simply is that it runs, the orders run with the land. And we look at the work schedule and sequence of events, which is I, and that's usually where there's a project being done. It's not really necessary here. Do you agree? Commissioners, yep. And then we move to J. So J is special conditions, and here actually Mr. Noonan suggested that you may want to seed on the slope. And that is, it's only suggestion, but that is a suggestion, and we will type that in. Is that okay? Do you agree?
Mm-hmm.
Is there any other suggestion you want to make?
No.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, they do.
Which is under H's.
Do we have
It's under-
certificate of compliance for the previous? Was there ever a?
I think
Yeah,
it
there
looks
was.
like there was.
So there was.
So I'm just looking back at administrative condition H5. Upon completion of the project, a written request for certificate of compliance is required. But you do not need a statement. That's what, actually Kathy already mentioned that.
Right,
That's where she
I
said.
think H5, if we delete the last sentence, we should use that condition.
No written statement by a registered professional engineer
I don't think it's
certifying
necessary.
compliance. And that's only because when we do an orders, how everybody knows that it's over, that everything's done, is that the homeowner asks, or the project owner asks for a certificate of compliance. And it's got nothing really to do with us other than we give it, saying that the work has been done, you've done everything according to the orders, and it neatly ties it up. If you ever did sell your house, that is one of the things they'd look for. They'd look for an order, and they'd actually look for a certificate of compliance that shows that everything was done. So you can come back to us for a certificate of compliance anytime, really. Is that okay? All right. Are there any other orders, ladies and gentlemen? So I'm going to close that out. Can I have a vote on that? Is that necessary? Do we have a vote on the orders? Yes. Can I have
Plans and-
can I have a vote on the acceptance of the plans as presented to us tonight, on and the orders that we gave that complement that plan? Do I have a proponent?
I'll
Jerry?
do that, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
you just said.
Second?
Second.
Bill? Okay, all those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Sorry for you to go through that. Thank you.
We'll mail it out to you. Okay.
Do we need this again?
Oh, I just give it to Nancy, I give it back.
I usually take this. Do I do that right?
Back to Nancy. You want to give me back your orders? And I'll pass them to Nancy. Yeah, you have your own.
2, 3, and 4.
Just pass them back to Nancy. So she has them first the next time.
No, 8-6.
Uh-oh.
Wrong
I
one.
wrote on the back of them.
It's all right, don't worry.
Keep it.
So just A6.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's only A6, G2, H2, and
Yes.
whatever the compliance one. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. Right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we go to the next issue, which is discussion of implementation of a fine form. Now, we all know what that means, right? Actually, I didn't know what that meant at all. But
Yeah.
do you want to elucidate, tell us what that meant, Kathy?
Sure. By the Abington bylaw, we are allowed to issue warnings, fines if somebody violates our bylaws. And the intent of, normally what would happen is you would go straight, we'd have to take people to Superior Court. Not a good way to resolve things for both parties because it's expensive, and most of the time we just want somebody to comply with an issue. The way it's set up is the first initial one, you know, we can decide what we want to do, but normally the suggestion is we go with a warning for the first one. So you don't get a monetary fine. So like when Jerry went out to do his enforcement order, he would do a ticket or something that says, this is a warning, you know, please be aware, you know, the next if they repeatedly violate or don't respond within the time, then you can go up the chain. It's 100, I forget what the second one is, and 300. I think it's like an incremented scale, 100, 200, 300. The Board of Health has put it into a ticket form, which makes it simple because it's just a one-pager, which is nice. And the intent is really for, in my opinion, when we did the bylaw, was to get people to come into compliance. It's really not, you know, I don't want to punish someone, I just want to get people to pay attention and do something. But these enforcement orders do take time, and some of our violations, you know, can be minor, but some of them can be significant and take a lot of time. We can charge a daily fine if we do so decide, but I think that would be something, in my opinion, the ticket really wouldn't be designed for. That would be something that we would discuss as a board.
Do these show up as a lien on a property?
It's if they don't pay it.
Oh, I don't know. I guess because it's a town fine, it might.
Okay.
And that, you know, for me, it's more, and if they can contest the fine, and the town manager has to hold you know, a short meeting to listen and decide whether he's gonna, you know, let them out of it or not. And we can do the same thing. We can decide after we work with someone that we're not gonna charge the fine. I think for me, it's all about getting people to pay attention and obey our laws. You know, we've had a lot of issues, you know, hopefully as people get to know us and understand what we're looking for, we won't have as many.
Is there a, I remember reading something about this. Is there a timetable on,
There's
when the first one comes in, how much time do they have to?
They have 20 days to either pay it or appeal it.
But if they continue after the first day, would we go out and hit them again with another one? Or is it 2 days, or is it 3 days?
We can decide
So we can
ourselves.
decide how
For
much?
me, I think you want to give them we meet every 2 weeks, so you want to at least, you know, give it a 2-week period for them to come into compliance, as long as they stop, unless it's something.
Like, we've had one situation where we had a cease and desist order, and the people kept doing whatever they wanted to.
Correct.
But, I mean, that's what I'm kind of getting at is,
We have the ability to do it the way we want to do it.
okay,
I would say that I would be more inclined to issue a flat fee, you know, a flat fine with a ticket.
Right.
And then if we have a repeated offender, decide as a board when we meet
Okay.
how we want to handle it, whether we want to issue a, you know, it's $100 a day. I think it's my intent is not to raise thousands of dollars from this. My
No.
intent is to get people to do
yeah,
the right thing.
my only worry is that if there's too much time between the first and the second one, people would just try and sneak it in under the, and just keep on going and say, well, you know, I'm gonna get a $100 fine, who cares, but I'll get all my work done. And try and do it that way. So that's one of my concerns.
Well, we gotta set up some kind of a procedure.
Right. And that's
First
kind
of all, cease and desist,
Right.
okay? And then a fine, or they come before the board. If they come before the board, then they have all the days and so forth to go to the DEP, and,
Yes.
Well,
but,
this is, yeah, that's right.
okay? And if they go to DEP, and we're fining them $100 a day, can they get that money back?
I think if they go to if they do a filing and go to DEP, we're probably gonna let it take, I would suggest we take the natural course. It's when they don't file and they
Okay.
don't follow the rules. We're talking about, and we have had people over the years that are repeated offenders, you know, that he's talking about.
Oh, yes, I understand that part. I'm just
It's-
worried about the comments, like these poor people came in here.
To me,
and
then
all-
we would just issue them a warning ticket. And
A cease and desist.
A cease and desist
Right.
with the warning, the ticket that says a warning.
Well, I
If they
suggest-
repeated, if they didn't listen to us after we told them to stop, then we could issue them $100 fine
Right.
ticket. I don't think, my intent is for
Well,
things
the
like we're
intention of
just-
the board should be that we should have a cease and desist. If they don't follow that, then follow up with the fine, not the fine,
Violation.
but the violation.
The warning.
The warning.
The warning.
And then from there, whatever action, because,
For me, the cease and desist and the warning should travel together.
Do we
well,
want,
isn't one the same as the other? I mean, you got a cease and desist, isn't that a legal document?
Yep.
yeah,
Okay.
but it's
Is this
different.
warning gonna be a legal document, or can?
It's a ticket.
It's a ticket.
It's a ticket. I think it's just to make them aware that if they don't pay attention, they're gonna get the fine the next time.
Well,
they
that,
go.
that was in
It
that
tells them
cease and
they're gonna be
desist.
fined.
It tells
on
them they're
that-
gonna be fined if they don't
Right.
But
address
then,
the
and
problem.
but in between time,
Wait a minute, wait a minute. In the cease and desist, and the last thing we had over there in, on the Brockton Abington line, in that cease and desist was, and that brought up the little confrontation of, there was a note in there, you'd be fined $300 a day.
Who typed that in?
I don't know.
mean, who would type that in?
But
They
anyways.
got a little
No,
bit bitter
I-
about
I
the
don't-
whole
But-
thing.
I don't
this-
think, for me, initially,
I
I don't
understand,
think-
but the
I don't
idea
think
is
we
that
should be doing
this
that
was, this,
initially.
but the cease and desist will show that there will be a fine. That's why one doesn't have to go with the other one. Have the cease and desist,
Say
and
there'll be a
then,
fine?
That one did, because I typed it in. Actually, could I talk about quickly the background of it? So we do have a fining capacity here, and it's under the bylaws, and it's up to $300 a day. That's what it says in the bylaws. And in the structure that we already have, like Mr. Noonan said, we have, Jerry or somebody goes out, Bill goes out, you get a cease and desist, the people come up, you say, this is the issue, you've got to stop it. Usually we end the cease and desist when they come up, but it might continue. We do the orders that, no longer working in the wetlands, stop what you're doing. For instance, these people, we checked to see if they were going to continue doing the trees. But say the work continued, I'm not too sure if it's really necessary to add another sheet of paper.
I agree.
Because you already have your cease and desist. A DP is actually, and we take this, although the fine authority comes from the bylaws in the town, the actual pieces of paper and the stages come from the DEP. And they tell us, cease and desist, you do your orders, and then if they, do it well, you get an act of certificate of compliance. If they don't, you fine them. And then I think it is an issue, the arbitrary issue of what is the fine? I mean, you're asking them to rectify whatever and that might be enough, actually. Asking somebody to take, say, Jersey barriers down, the cost of that might be prohibitive enough. They have to do that, and you may not need to actually have to go to the next step of fining them. But you could fine them per week until they do it, or per meeting.
but that's in the first piece of paper, you give them the cease and desist.
Yes.
We don't have to be a ticket
Well,
agency
you
here like a
have to
police
put that
officer.
into the cease and desist. or-
Yeah, you're right,
I
and Jerry
think-
brought that up, actually.
I think it's what, this constitutes a warning,
Yeah.
by the town bylaw, blah, blah, blah.
Well,
And-
because they were having a discussion, something like this about municipal employees, and one of the lawyers there said, well, people should know that anyway. Ignorance of law is no excuse, and that's true, and a lawyer would say that. But in actual fact, we should. That's why I typed that into it got the right reaction, that the poor people came forward, because they honestly thought that they were being hit by a cease and desist. But I really put that in because Jerry said, you know what, if you're gonna threaten people with fines because of some condition they've caused, you've got to tell them up front. And that's part of government, that you honestly have to tell people up front what the
in
issue
your,
is.
when you wrote it in,
Yeah.
they actually, that's when they made their moves.
Yeah, they
They thought they were being fined.
yeah, I'm telling you, I didn't do that. I did that really because that was something I thought to put in,
So it
but it
worked,
got a
right?
reaction
It
immediately
worked.
from them. Yeah,
It did work.
Yeah, that wasn't the intent.
Failure to cease and desist, or whatever it is we ordered them to do them in the cease and desist order, will result in fines. Might be the way to put it,
Yeah.
per.
and I lay out the fine because you have the authority to do it up to $300 a day, and it might be something prohibitive that you need to have it done immediately. If it was, for instance, spillage in a wetland area, you got to move that immediately, and that involves a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of expertise. But they have that thin that they've got to get it done within a certain number of days or they're paying. That's an example. I mean, we're not really talking about the people who came tonight. We're not really talking
Right.
about
To me,
them.
that's just, that is, for me, we told them, we gave them a warning. They were very happy to comply because they didn't want to break a law.
Yeah.
They did probably realize they were doing it, and we've resolved it.
And
And
to
to
be
me,
hon-
that's, it's a homeowner thing, but
Yeah.
we have had people deliberately do things repeatedly, even though we've told them not to.
Yeah, well, you're right, Mrs. Powers. I mean, that isn't, is that Mr. Wu? Is that the monastery? Yeah.
And
And
the piece of equipment's still there.
that's an issue that we actually did do. You did do a restraining order on him, ask him not to do any more work, and they were supposed to come back, and they haven't come back yet, have they? So and we have to deal, that is an issue that you have to deal with. We have to, and
Yes.
especially as Mr. Wu intends to do other work there, and
On
has
a
told
Saturday
us.
afternoon.
Pardon?
It was on a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, I know, well, Jerry, yes.
Now, in that case, did we have the
Well, I-
same typing in there where it says you'll be fined?
No, he didn't,
So
because
that's,
I did the
that,
thing.
I think that's exactly it right there, that's the difference. I think if he had seen
Yeah, that's
that,
true. If it's in there,
right,
then they realize that, it can happen. And we didn't do, I just went up there and I said, you have to stop what you're doing.
right.
Oh, okay. And he said to me, well, Jerry, can I finish moving something? I said, sure, just finish that and you're gonna have to quit. Well,
You think he went
You go
further?
back, you go back later on and find him.
'Cause-
yeah, true. And then,
Because that was my question, was how far, in that particular case, I mean, it's not before us now, but in that case, how far has he gone, to do that? And of course, it's winter time now, so we don't really
oh,
know
well,
at
yeah,
all.
this stuff. I believe that, didn't you say they're working on something, they're trying to get something together that can be?
They
forced?
are, they've come, they actually have a contractor who's done a plan, and he came to Nancy and said he hasn't finished it yet. So, I did, one of the reasons they might have done that, said that, is because I told them to tell us everything they intend to do, because this is not simply clear-cutting trees around the pond, which
They
they
wouldn't know.
did. But they actually intend to construct something on an island. Now, I don't know what he calls an island. There's just a few mounds in the pond to me. But he intends to do some kind of thing, and it has to be done by the summer of 2015 or something. So I told him to,
Aren't there a lot of people coming to this? Somebody said there's a lot of people
yeah,
coming.
a lot of people coming because the Buddha is apparently going to be there, some religious deity. And, there's also an issue that they're actually going to do a parking lot right there where you saw them digging. So with a parking lot comes runoff and drainage and all the issues. So that's when I said that, there's going to be a lot of questions the commissioners are going to have. So you better have all the information. And I gather that's probably why. I'm hoping that's why. they're taking
Back to
the time.
this.
Yeah.
I would suggest that we start with, the cease and desist, and also have some kind of definition of the fine. If it's gonna be up to 300, because, and who's gonna fine them type thing, in other words, who's gonna determine the fine? We can't wait for a meeting if it's a situation, so would it be the chairman?
Oh, no. I mean, that is actually an issue that the commission determines. The chairman doesn't go and simply say, you can decide that if there's a violation, it can be $300 a day. But then at the actual meeting,
What if it was just something small, like remove something,
Yeah, so
if you wanna
I think
remove,
We'd have to talk about that and say, well,
so we'd have to wait for a meeting
Yeah.
for the fine to come up,
well,
okay?
I think we could put this in one of the next meetings and say, let's put a scale in of what we think is.
That's what I'm, that's what I'm looking for, yeah, a scale,
We start off at
perfect.
50 or 25 or whatever, and
Mm-hmm.
then we'll say, okay, if this happens, this is the next trigger for the next one going on all the way up.
yeah, I mean, and that's where your point about a ticket then is a good idea.
Right.
Because you have I don't think it's a good idea to add an extra piece of paper, especially as Nancy and I have to do
That's
that
fine.
extra piece of paper.
That's
But
fine. I think
but
if we
actually
just put
having a
some standard
graded,
checks,
yeah.
having it graded and, having something that, if we do have to give it to somebody.
Excellent.
We click the boxes since the Board of Health has already started it.
Yeah.
We might want to try to model it after that somehow.
That sounds good. Does anybody for the next meeting want to suggest what kind of grades or increments
Yeah,
it
I'll try,
could
I'll
be?
give it a.
Could you do that? And then we could talk about it at the
Because I
next
think
meeting.
we suggested like
I
100,
think-
200, and 300, depending,
Yeah.
on
The Board of Health is a little different, because they're into every restaurant and every
Understand.
place. You know, and so they probably need something like this. so
Ours
they can
might be
write a reg-
different, we may have a sheet that goes with this that just lists the types of things that would
Yeah.
create, you know, if somebody's constantly filling a wetland.
Mhm.
I mean, to me, that's, and they've been told to stop. I think we'll very quickly escalate
And
from
we're
100 to 300.
as we've been here longer, we're starting to know the people.
Yeah, I think so. Bill, were you going to say something?
How actually does the fine get issued? Is it issued from conservation, or is it from the town?
It's issued
clerk,
from
or-
conservation,
Okay.
so it'll be on our stationery.
It'll be on
and-
our
And
agenda.
we need to track whether fines are paid or not,
Yeah,
have some sort of system for
Yeah,
that too.
I think if you do read the bylaws too, it's the person that's getting fined, they can take this into the town manager and say, you know, I've done this, 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 and this, and I don't agree with the board. Can you give me some relief from this fine?
and they can also come to us and talk to us as
It's
well.
the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. The context, too, is Nancy was just doing a description of the activities for 2013 of this commission. And how many emergency orders do we have? We had 6, and then what were the other things? We had 6 enforcement. I got to tell you, that's far more. That's 6 more than's been done, you know, for the last 5 years or 10 years. Incredibly active board. This is a big time for cutting wood, you know, cutting trees down. And I actually called up, there was some cutting near one of the wetlands, and I called up the tree company that was doing a very nice guys up the street, and I explained to them that they just have to tell us, report to us in future what they're going to do. And I think that's what, you know, all the tree companies are doing that now. And I'm finding, certainly Nancy, I think, is finding that people are calling us now before they're doing things, or making sure that we know. Jerry is out quite a bit. And so that actually is a tribute to you guys. Honestly, this is an incredibly active commission.
Awareness.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Yeah, and it's just gonna take a little while, I think.
it does. All right, do you think we've done that to
Yeah,
death?
and I'll give it a shot, see if it drives me back for the first time.
Thanks, Kathy. Okay, the next item is a DP number 84239. And this is a drainage area filled in and blocked at 1477 Bedford Street.
Can I address this?
Yep.
I went out and looked at this, and I looked at it real close. And if we asked 1477 to open up the culvert under their driveway, you're gonna have to ask the Pupils Bus to open up theirs. The high point on Route 18 is South Shore Terminals. And it looks to me that this was done purposely, and a retention area created by the pupils, because from South Shore Terminals, there's a swale that comes right down, and it stops at the pupils before 1477. 1477 is the Trump, whatever, trout,
Disposed.
the disposal. So, and that's been blocked off. It's also been blocked off under the pupils area. If you follow that, there is no drainage on Route 18. The water will flow all the way down to, and believe it or not, to the plaza by Mary Lou's. The only drain is on the other side of Mary Lou's, next to FedEx. And if we ask them to open that up, I'm afraid, and this might have happened in the past, that's why it was closed, you're gonna flood those stores just from the, the grade of where it's starting from and the flow. And I'll bet it's 20 feet, just guessing now, I just did it by eye, from the top, from the asphalt at South Shore Terminals down to the, we'll say the Chinese restaurant. I bet it's a 20-foot run, downhill. So, and it runs also from Route 18 down into the plaza shops.
They redeveloped 1477 Bedford Street, and I do believe that they added that drainage in the front. And the pupils, you know, where they blocked it off
Yeah.
with the double drums at the culvert.
Well, it's not
just-
double drum, those drums are just sitting there. This is actually blocked off by concrete.
Yeah, but this is the double drums.
I saw-
There's
yep.
actually a run there that goes, because we had Mass DOT, we were out with Mass DOT.
Right.
There's a run that goes back, down to the property and back,
There's an
where the
18
drive-in
pipe.
is.
There's an 18-inch pipe that runs from one of those culverts all the way back to 0 Adams Street. They
It
want-
does.
It
does.
Okay, well, I'm just,
I
if
understand.
if that's opened up and you have any kind of a good rainstorm, I'm just afraid, just from knowing how water runs, and it runs downhill, and I don't know whether that catch basin's gonna catch it. There is no catch basin.
That's right.
Right.
It's, so if it's dammed and it's gonna run under the, at 1477, if it's gonna go run back towards 0 Adams, then that's fine if there's a pipe there. But if there's not a pipe there and you're gonna create, well, you're gonna create a swale.
I think, just like you said, I think someone needs to investigate this more before we
Because
do
that-
anything,
Then you're gonna have
because
neighbors fighting neighbors on water damage,
There-
water damage into retail stores, and if that property's down there owned by NISBY.
all of those areas are getting redone by, Mass DOT.
That's why I think we
It's not gonna come for another 2 years.
But it's not bothering anybody right now. It seems they put retention areas in there, and to ask them open up a can of worms, I think is gonna create problems. I think it's, if it
I
does.
also have problems with people filling in things and
Well,
putting
this-
drums in places where they
Well,
shouldn't to
that's
stop,
fine,
dam
okay.
stuff up. I
If you
mean,
wanna make a decision, I'm gonna stand off of it, because that means you're deciding what neighbors are gonna do, and if it gets flooded down there, and those stores start lawsuits, I think we're gonna be held responsible. And I mean that, because I'm gonna tell you right now, if you go and shoot the grades, and you see that water run down there, I'm not saying it's going to, but it's not doing it now, but if it does, and we make the decision, and so 1477 is gonna have water coming from the pupils is getting it from South Shore Terminals, and it's all gonna flow down to this,
Well, I think
NISBY's
we
place.
probably need an answer from 1477, why they did it. I mean, that seems to be
Right.
my comment to answer Mike's, because I'd like to understand why they did it.
I don't know why they did it, but I can just tell you, if it flows, if that's just a culvert that flows
Because there's
under,
a
and
big-
that swale is gonna be opened
There's
back
been a
up.
whole redevelopment at 1477, including a detention basin in the back, and
Oh, I know, but what
And-
I'm,
and I
what I,
think,
I know,
you
but
know-
what I looked at, you're not listening, what I looked at is that it stopped at the culvert.
yeah.
And if that culvert runs down the way it looks like it used to,
1477,
down to the Chinese restaurant, down to, the only drain is next to,
Mary Lou's.
Mary Lou's. The only drain from South Shore Terminals on Route 18 and up through all those properties.
From what we were showing too, at the joint meeting that we had with Weymouth, is that the catch basins on the other side of Route 18 where the Christmas tree shop are, drain back on the other side. That's what they go back on the other side and come in one of those culverts supposedly and drain out.
I mean, I think, Mike, that you have touched a big issue, because all that area is
Unders-
very bad for drainage, and,
But they did create a retention area at the Pupils, on the Pupils parking,
Yeah.
over there between South Shore Terminals and Pupils. So it looks like it was stopped even before, and that doesn't run under, that's been blocked off or dammed up going under Pupils, so that doesn't even run down to 1477.
Oh, it's blocked, the one that goes down, the pipe that goes down to Pupils is blocked off?
There's a culvert under the roadway, under the driveway.
I saw that, which had the, it's on one side they filled in, on the other side they put a,
Piece of concrete barrier.
that's right. But I thought that they had a thing that actually puts it down, that goes from the road, Route 18, to where the buses are, that they had a.
That I don't, I just know how water runs.
Did they?
Yeah, and
Because they were, what they were doing is diverting the water to, there's actually wetlands further on down there at the back of the site. We deal with it in, remember the guy was coming with the building that he wanted to build?
Right.
And all those wetlands, it's the same wetlands, same area we're talking about, Adams Street, you were talking about 0 Adams Street. And they put a pipe or something from that Route 18 to that area there. They were diverting the
If
water.
that pipe is filled in and you ask them to open this up, I just see problems coming. Right now, there are no problems, there are no complaints. We're creating our own complaint because of the
Yeah.
DOT.
That's
Nobody-
right, you're
nobody
right,
nobody's brought an issue to us, we're bringing this up.
you're right, you're
And
right.
I think
It
this is
actually,
one thing that, and I'll tell you, I will rescind from it, because if that water flows down and starts flooding, and all you have to do is go down, stand in front of the, the Chinese restaurant at Mary Lou's, and you'll see how the water's gonna run, and it's gonna flood them.
Right. Well, I mean, you're right. The background to this is that we were doing this walk on Route 18 with the DOT, and they had plans that showed culverts, and we looked at it, and the people had filled it in front of the truck disposal place, and then we saw these plastic bins blocking and cement blocking the other culvert. But the DOT people did tell us that drainage there was very, very bad. And in fact, just on the other side of that swale is going to be a big detention basin. That's part of the project. And even with that detention basin, it's not going to be enough. They're worried that it's not going to be enough to continue to save the water. And they're going to have another one behind the candle store, or what was the candle store, you know, there, which is, maybe that's further on down the road, but they're going to have another
Yes.
one, detention basin behind there, because the drainage is such a big issue. I mean, that is, you know, and, I mean, that is the thing, it's going to, even the building of Route 18, which is only 2 years away,
Right.
is going to exacerbate those issues.
Well, it's up to you. If you guys want to vote on it, I'm going to vote against it. I'll tell you right now, because
I think we
said-
need more. I don't wanna, you know, I don't wanna pop the cork off anything and find out
Exactly.
that.
I would like to have 1477 Bedford Street come and explain to us why they filled it in. Because if there's a rational explanation, we can try to figure out what makes sense.
Right.
Because at this point, I think it's simple enough to get Peoples to take the drums out of the way, but it looks like Abington Transfer Station LLC, whatever this is now, that lot, is the one that filled it in. And they did some pretty significant changes to the lot, and the drainage was actually, from my recollection, was supposed to move to the back of the property, you know, and the drainage was supposed to be taken care
But
of.
it's not bothering anybody. Why bring somebody in? It's not inflicting wetlands and so forth. The drainage is fine. Why are we bothering somebody when it's gonna be taken care of in 2 years anyways?
That's
It might have
what
been,
it
it
is.
might have been like this for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Jerry, did you have something?
No, it's
Were you
only
going to
been,
say something?
Mass DOT or two ago,
Michael's
they
right.
just filled- and they filled it in recently.
I mean, we are talking about something, like Mike said, that actually is going to
gonna be taken care
disappear.
of, right.
It's going to be
taken care
gone,
of, right.
certainly within 2 years. I mean, that alone, I suppose, is not a reason for
The
it.
state is aware of it too, that they did say it, we know.
Yes,
It
it's the
actually
state who
does-
brought it up.
It is flow to and from a wetland bill, so.
Well, how about if, was this based on an order or a notice of intent? We're reopening this? This was a notice of intent back in 1984, or? And we're looking at it. So, am I authorized, or Nancy and I authorized to write a letter to the owners to ask them to come before the board and explain why they filled it in, what the reasoning was? Is that okay?
I think that
guess.
might solve the problem,
Yeah.
because maybe, you know, I'd like to hear exactly why they did it.
Okay, so let me send a letter off to them. All right, are there any other comments on that? Is there any comments from the floor on that? Mr. Ayala? No. No, we're all set. Well, they filled it in, although there may have, I think Mr. Noonan was actually getting at that there probably might have been reasons for that, to do
Yeah,
it. It's a
I think-
very bad area for flooding, although it's not a bad area where they are, actually. I don't see any flooding there, but there's actually a swale.
You see
So
water
that's-
in
There's,
front of
there's,
that property still.
there's, yeah,
Then
there's a
again-
swale, and the swale has been turned into a retention area,
Yeah.
but at pupils, not at, the water, I don't even think the water gets to 1477.
Right.
I
Because they
think,
blocked it
well, pupils, the pupils parking lot is one that put up that concrete, and that's where they made the retention area.
That's right, yeah. Okay, so
Yeah,
I'll
I
write
mean,
to them.
This could be I mean, do we actually know that they did this, or would it be Mass DOT that did this? So we don't,
The,
we don't know that for sure.
Well,
so-
actually, we
some-
don't know if it was Mass DOT, because, you know, the people we were with were the engineers who do the
Right.
plans, so they don't maintain the road.
Somebody put a concrete barrier at the culvert, not at 1477, at the pupils, to stop the water there, and they have a retention area between South Shore Terminals and pupils, just to hold the water, because the water will flow from South Shore Terminals all the way down Route 18. And I think if you open it up and let it go, it's going to flood Nisbe's.
The water
water is supposed to go to the back of the property.
So are we talking
Well, it's
about?
supposed to, but I'm just saying, if you open it up, this is what's gonna happen. This is what I do for a living. If you open it up and it doesn't flow to the back down to 0 Adams Street, you're gonna flood the Nisbe's property. I'll guarantee that just as sure as I'm sitting here.
Are we talking about 1477 Bedford Street?
We're talking
Or are we
about all of Route 18 coming down and how
Oh, I
it
know.
flows.
I understand, but are we talking about that, or are we talking about next door?
He's
40
talking
Well, I'm talking about next door because that's where it stopped.
So those are the people I really have to write to, because those are the
Right.
people we thought.
1477 is just a couple of barrels sitting out there, and they have a lawn in there, so it looks to me like
They
they
filled
stopped the
in
water.
drainage.
They
They
look to me
filled
like,
in a
I'll
riprap.
finish. It looks to me like they stopped the water so it wouldn't flow down to Nisbe's property.
Right,
So
Kathy?
my point is that, I think they both have done something, because 1477 took out the riprap in the drainage ditch. There was a swale there, and that was there when they did this notice of intent. It was there for years.
Okay,
And only recently has it been filled.
well, I'll write 2 letters then. I'll write
Yeah, I think they
both
both, and
landowners.
see if we can get them both in at the same time, and maybe
Sure.
we can find out what happened.
Sure. And I'll report back, or we'll have something back in the, by the March meetings of March 11th, March 25th. If we can have people come back before us before then, that would be good. But that gives us some kind of timeline, and I'll diary it to March 11th. All right, building permits, 73 Leonard Farm
I went
Road.
there and signed off on
Excellent.
What did they put in?
an addition.
Do you want to look at the minutes for November 26th and December 10th? While you're doing that, I'm just going to look at our correspondence.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of November 26th.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
I,
Abstain.
Unanimous?
I wasn't
You
there.
abstain? Okay. Mr. Feeney abstained.
Which one was it? It was both of the minutes,
26th.
26, yeah.
And do I have a motion to approve December 10th?
motion to approve December 10th minutes?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain. I was
Three
there.
abstain. Okay, on the correspondence, the first thing I'd like to bring up is a notice, but I don't have anything before you on that, and it involves Highland Street and 1212 Bedford Street. Mr. D'Andretti is the owner of 1212 Bedford Street. Mr. and Mrs. Reed have a house on Highland Street. It's opposite the Abington Ale House. And it might be best to explain that Mr. Andretti's land is kind of like an L-shaped, and then in the middle is the Reed's land. And if you remember, in June, they complained because in his building in that area, he pushed over the stone wall into this water. And there was an issue about whether it was a pond or whether it was a stream or whether it was just stagnant water, an isolated, flooded plain, or whether it was just water. And at that time, Mr. D'Andretti came before us, and it was resolved that he would make sure, take the stones out and make sure there was some kind of barrier between his land and the Reed's land. So since that happened, Mr. D'Andretti did put Jersey barriers there, and he put them along the side here, and he also put Jersey barriers at the bottom of the property. So the land inclines from east to west, west to east to Bedford Street, and it slopes down to Bedford Street. And the Jersey barriers, there's actually, he put one Jersey barrier, another Jersey barrier, and then put another Jersey barrier on top of that one, and another one on top of that one. So there's actually two Jersey barriers at the foot of the land. So what happened is the water did seem to flow down, even though I didn't think it flowed. The water did come down. It didn't permeate, go into the ground. There's actually a well there too. And seemed to backflow into the Reeds property, so that now they have something that looks very like the Florida Everglades, water all over there from their property. What I did last week is I looked at all the files that we have from the Conservation Commission going back to 1990. And if you remember last summer, I actually reviewed all the minutes of the meetings. And throughout that period, the Conservation Commission here in Abington was trying to decide whether there were wetlands there or whether there weren't. And in fact, the DEP map, if you look at it today, does show that there are wetlands there, right there where the Reeds property is, bordering on Mr. De Andretti's property. And I noted that the only expert plan we have that the Conservation Commission had was back in 2007, a plan submitted by an engineer called Clapp on behalf of Mr. De Andretti did actually mention there were wetlands at the foot of their land. So, but it was always an issue whether there was a wetland, whether it was an isolated wetland and all that stuff. However, looking at the Reeds, they made a complaint to the town manager, and the town manager passed the complaint to us. And looking at their complaint, another interest in the Chapter 40, the Wetland Act, as defined by the CMRs, 310 CMR 10.1, is flooding. A land that is floods or is conducive to flooding. And it seems here that the land is conducive to flooding. And so whether there's a wetland or not, I don't know, although it seems like we do actually, looking back on it, I didn't realize this in June, but we do have some evidence that there is that. But certainly there is flooding issue here, and so we have jurisdiction over it. And so what I would like is not so much to reopen what we did last summer, but simply ask Mr. De Andretti to come before us to talk about this property with the Reeds and the flooding to see if there's some kind of rectification. If there's not, I'd like to send a letter out, much like the other cases we have. And then if there is no response, then I would do an enforcement order, which goes with a notice of intent, which would require the landowner, which in this case would be the contractor, the landowner to actually do a plan, literally have an engineer's plan, a PE's plan on drainage. But before any party needs to go to that expense, it might be that it can be resolved very, very easily. Mr. Newman.
If Mr. Andretti, is that his name?
I think so, yeah.
Andretti, he might have created his own flooding problems by putting those barriers up.
That's what it seemed to me.
So, and is it flooding onto the neighbor's land?
Yeah.
Well, I know that there's a state law, I don't know if it's federal, but I know there's a state law, you have to control your own water. So he could be in for more than just seeing us.
Well, he might argue that the water is always gone on the Reed's land. And actually, when they came before us, they said it was a river, and I didn't think it was at the time. But it may well have been that
My
it was.
point is, if he's damming it up and making it in, a pond, then he's forcing the water back onto their land if it's supposed to flow again downhill and off of their land.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I'd bring him in, there's no question about it, but I think he might be creating more of a problem for himself with the neighbors.
Now, I should say that he has been investigated by another board. And the Board of Selectmen that this complaint was made initially to is also investigating him under a bylaw which says that you need a permit to bring landfill in. And there's an issue about bringing landfill in. And I was at a meeting last night because of this, on this issue, where the Selectmen actually voted to investigate the issue of landfill. But I think their investigation may well take a backseat to ours, because we're the regulatory board in this. Selectmen are too. But we don't look after the landfill. It's got nothing to do with us. But, they may well. I'm not too sure if I'm going to copy them on all our investigation. But I don't know what the story is with their landfill. because they debate, apparently their building inspector debates that it's applicable to Mr. D'Andretti. He thinks that the particular kind of landfill, it's not applicable. Though in reading the files, I noticed in the Conservation Commission, there was actually a letter from the town manager back in 2007, I think, 2007 from Ms. Jameson, asking Mr. D'Andretti to come forward with a permit, request a permit. But
I gotta ask, related subject, does he own the land up behind that building too, you had me go up and look at back in the summertime, clearing on the other
Yes.
side of Highland, going up the hill, Nancy? Yeah, up behind
He
that
does.
building,
He
okay.
does.
So he's got a history here.
yeah, he does. And the Reeds say that the property behind them, he just recently purchased that, and he also put Jersey barriers there. So it sounds like they're kind of totally enclosed by Jersey barriers. But the problem with it is that there's water coming down because, Highland Street goes
The
up.
Right.
drainage from Highland used to drain to that pond that was there. And the fact that it's not there, the water needs to go somewhere.
Yeah.
I think it was a flood control storage area, and it's not there.
So we've jurisdiction. Mr. D'Andretti, certainly with us, with our commission this year, he's worked with us before. He came and chatted and we talked about it. So I hope that we can help them resolve it simply by that, rather than going the next step, which is enforcement and trying to work out a plan. And again, this is a problem that I think won't be around in 2 years' time. There may be other issues, but with the building of Route 18,
I think it'll actually be worse, Dennis, because,
I don't think they have anything on that section that's gonna
no,
be
they don't.
isn't there a
And
detention one just up?
further down.
It's on the other side, though. This is
Across
gonna
from
be,
Summit.
it's not
Yeah.
gonna take that water and move it. I think the problem is that there's no place for the water to go.
To go now.
And, I think the fact that he has developed the land without a permit there, he's brought in Phil and developed because normally you'd be developing a commercial property, because there's no building on it. There's no storm detention there.
Yeah.
He's taken everything down, there's no vegetation, so nothing's holding it back. Plus, he
Well,
like
the
Mike said, he
selectmen
might have
seem-
created a,
Yeah, the selectmen
directional.
seem disturbed enough that they
Yeah.
ordered an investigation. They were worried about it.
yeah, I mean, it's a pretty significant flooding issue. If they're getting water now,
Yeah,
the spring's probably gonna be miserable, so.
right. Okay, so I'm authorised to write a letter inviting
Yes.
all the parties to come. Here, we might look again at March 25th. Is that okay? That gives them time. There's not really much you can do. It's all iced over. You can see, but it is, so. Okay, we have a series of two plans that the planning board have passed on to us, and we can expect notices of intent. In fact, we actually have received one based on these. The first one is for 225 Groveland Street. That is the Cape Cod lumber. And what they're doing is they found apparently that their customers still go to their old place in Route 18. So they're trying to bring their customers up to the Groveland area. And they're going to build a centre at the car park there. So if you go in, they've got this lovely big car park on the left-hand side. And they want to build a centre there for the customers to go to. And this is the plan. They went to the planning board. Planning board has sent us these plans. They actually have sent us a notice of intent. We received it today, I think, or yesterday. Yeah. So it'll come before you at the next meeting. Is the next meeting? Yeah.
Adding on. Cape Cod lumber's adding on.
Yes.
It's huge now.
The next thing from the planning board was plans to build in 313 Adam Street. Now that's that office block beside the bank. Adam Street and the bank is there. On the corner there's the new gas station on the corner 139, the bank, and then that white building there. And just to read a letter from Mr. Riley, Nick Jan is the owner of a 2.5-story building located on the southeastern corner of Adam Street and Wales Street. Building currently contains a dentist office and vacant space, 18 existing bathrooms of various sizes, and they want to actually change it into apartments. upgrade this building into 11 residential units, thus removing 7 of the existing bathrooms. And we were copied on that.
Where was that?
But that's an existing
Right
building.
next to the
Is
bank,
there-
Jerry.
Are they doing something maybe to the parking
Abington
lot?
Savings Bank?
Yeah.
Left it, Scott, two
Do
weeks
you
ago.
guys want to see the Cape Cod lumber?
Well, we didn't receive a notice. So I don't know how that would apply to it. This definitely applies because there's wetlands all
Oh,
around
yeah,
it.
that one's,
But I don't know how that would apply.
58 and,
Oh, it's the
Were
one
the
on the
cabins
corner.
on there?
Yeah.
It's the brick building.
No,
Unless they
Go past
thought there
Joe's
was a
Barber
drainage issue.
Where?
the Sunoco station,
Yeah.
Joe's Barber Shop.
Yeah.
And you get on that road.
The
past
wheels.
Yeah, I don't.
past these-
I can't really see
nothing.
how that
What's
would
the club?
apply.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe they're just copying us on their,
would be very
Yeah,
nice,
the
actually.
building is right
So
up
Cross
okay.
the street, yeah.
On the right.
Let's-
Good.
to-
Kind
yeah,
of nice
let's
to have
call
the
kids
plan
up.
so you can see what it
Yeah.
is and not
Kids.
to be surprised.
Our
it
son's
is,
friends.
it is, but these come down. And none of the boards actually work in a vacuum.
Yeah, a lot of offices.
Right.
I did the sewer tie years ago.
The board, we received a letter from the Office of the Board of Selectmen saying that they've closed their warrant. It was unanimously voted to open the annual town meeting warrant on Monday, January 27, 2014, and to close the annual town meeting warrant on Tuesday, February 18, 2014. Further voted to open the special town meeting warrant on Monday, 27th, 2014, and close that special town meeting warrant on Monday, March 3rd, 2014. This, I think, for us as a commission is only important if we think that we're going to ask for special bank accounts later on. And that might be an issue either with this commission or next year's commission, where we're talking about revolving accounts, you know, and that might be an issue. So, actually, Mr. and Mrs. Powers, I see we got an email from the DP. We were copied on it, and it's in Ray, the matter of Katrina Park, docket number WET-2013-025. This is now in administrative proceedings. So there was, the case was appealed to DP. There was a DP superseding order. They actually appealed that, but it goes through then administrative proceedings where there's a hearing. And it says, presiding officer Giorlandi, has allowed the motion to stay this appeal. A formal stay order will be issued either today or early next week.
What does that mean? What does a stay mean?
Well,
Does that mean it?
It means that they've stopped the process for the moment. Is there any kind of settlement
It
on
means
this?
that we're gonna be calling our lawyer tomorrow if he's got trouble.
Well, this was sent on, when was this sent? January 17th.
We're going March 3rd as far as I know.
You're going March 3rd, there's a hearing date on March
March
3rd.
3rd is our hearing date, and we're going forward.
Let me see. The motion to stay was by Adam Browski of Droken, Tokyo and Morgan in Hingham.
That's their lawyer.
That's their
his
lawyer.
name.
But the judge,
Well, he's accepted the stay. I mean, speaking as a
No,
lawyer,
we have to accept the stay too, and we haven't.
well, he's allowed it. He's the presiding officer, he's the judge. But it's only a stay. I mean, I presume the reason usually in legal proceedings why you have a stay or administrative proceedings is because the parties are discussing, try and find some resolution before the final decision maker makes it. So I presume that's what's happening. All right. Oh no, you know what? I just got a copy of the stay, and actually the stay is by the Department of Environmental Protection itself. They actually filed for the stay. Neither Ms. Park's counsel nor your counsel, Mr. and Mrs. Powers, filed it. It was actually by the senior counsel of the DEP.
I was gonna say, I knew the two lawyers hadn't agreed to a stay.
Right. So they must have done it. We received a letter January 9th from the Town of Abington Community Development Office. They're going to be submitting in February the Community Development Fund grant to create a regional housing rehabilitation program. Why would we get one of those? I'm writing to you to determine whether these projects will have any adverse effects on the environment, especially relating to floodplains and wetlands. The Abington Whitman Regional Housing Rehabilitation Programme will target low and moderate income residents residing in properties with building code violations and substandard conditions. The anticipated housing rehabilitation projects will include lead paint and asbestos removal.
This is this grant that they filed back in 2012, and they received it. They split the grant between Abington and Whitman,
I
and
see.
now they're filing for another grant for 2014. So, unless people are, whoever gets money for the grant, if they're doing any type of construction around their property that they need to come before us, then they'd have to come before us.
Right.
So I think this is just a lot of few letting you know that they're.
So do you think how do you think I have to respond to this and say,
You know, you will have to, you know, if you're doing, if construction occurs in the buffer
In most- right.
or wetland zone, you should notify it, you should, file the appropriate
And I
paperwork.
want to say most of the money that was awarded was for emergency projects for some of the people's housing. And also they gave some money also to the food pantry,
That was good,
wow.
so.
that was very good.
We have two cool magazines, River Watch, which is North and South River Watershed, and Northern Woodlands. Does anyone
Jerry
have
likes
a-
Northern Woodlands.
Jerry, are you on Northern Woodlands?
Is that the one I read already?
No, I think it's a different one.
Oh my gosh, it's 8:30. So, is there
I
any
think
other
Bill's
issues?
gonna take that home and read it.
Does anybody have any other issues?
I attended a school building committee meeting. I want to say it was 2 weeks ago. It was at the police station. Anyways, at the end of the meeting, they were actually just discussing, talking about trying to get in front of preliminarily, trying to get in front of the Conservation Commission, also the Planning Board. So they're in their preliminary design phase right now of where they kind of want to situate the building on the property and so forth and so on. And they just kind of wanted to come before us and say, what is it that they might want to see from us as far as what they need to put in their plans, so forth and so on. So very informal.
Oh, okay.
And I just said that it hadn't been a problem because we had done this for another person before. Actually, the Arch.
Yep.
He came in front of us and kind of was looking for something, and just informally, they still have to come back in front of us to get a notice of intent to go ahead with the project, but they want to make sure that they cross all their i's and, dot their i's and cross their t's and.
I'll be honest, that I find those kind of requests frustrating because the design and construction professionals, they know exactly what to do and they come before us with the plans. And, that's why I was trying to tell, the other people who came that honestly, we can't hit a moving target. I mean, except that we know where they're building actually are wetlands right around there, and that's an issue. But, the architects and the contractors know exactly what to do, don't they?
We're not botanists, we're not engineers.
Yeah.
No.
We're a volunteer group.
Right.
We should be, a set of plans should be submitted to us to look at, and if it's stamped by an engineer and so forth, all we do is critique it.
Yeah. It's as
And
simple as
I would
that.
tell you that the suggestion that I would make, I think I mentioned this to you already, is that, for them
Have you seen
to
the plan?
probably
It's over here,
delineate,
right? They're gonna do
an abbreviated notice of
two buildings
intent
with
of
high school.
delineation of the wetlands, so that they'll have a
haven't
fixed
seen it.
point, that we're all on the same
They were
page.
talking.
Yeah.
And then they can do their design based on that, we've all agreed upon the wetlands line where it is, and then the engineers and botanists and all the scientists can go figure out where, what they need to do, because there's all sorts of issues with, if they're in the riverfront protection district,
Right.
if you're within 100 feet, how much development you're allowed to do in that first 100 feet. They need to figure that out, we shouldn't be directing them.
I think any question should really be, it should come right through the chair. If
Oh, good.
Can't wait.
I see.
If the town manager has questions or or somebody else just,
Yeah.
I mean, informally, they could get a hold of the chair and just say, I have these issues, and, you could just guide them, say, well, this is probably what we're gonna look for, but, don't go by what I say this is, you know,
Right.
yours to come up with a complete engineering, everything done for it, so.
Yeah, I am very careful. I mean, people do call in to Nancy and myself, and, you know, constantly calls are, whoever the lucky next chairperson is going to have that too, that you get these calls in, and I have to be very careful and say that, look, honestly, this is before the commissioners, you know, they're meeting next week, why didn't you come? I really don't know myself. You know, I package up what the issue is, but other than that, I leave it to you, and I agree. And you know, I think, as you know, time is an issue with me, and we spend a lot of time on all our cases. So it would be nice if they would just go. We were talking about it earlier with the fines. That, you know, there's actually a set procedure you do it. You find a notice of intent. You're told what to do in the notice of intent. You come back with that. It's very, very simple. But that brings me nicely to two things. One is there's a list before you of all our meetings that Nancy did. Did you get that?
Mm-hmm.
So those are all our meetings for the rest of the year. Know that our municipal year actually ends in July, the end of June, right? The end of June. And so around that time will be the time that we will reorganise. The second thing, very, very quickly, is that the Board of Selectmen have said no to us having special municipal status. So there's a big issue about why and all that stuff. They actually did have a meeting. That's what they were having a meeting
Well,
about.
and I think what I heard Mr. Franey say was that they actually, if you wanted to have it, that you could go to in front of the board and they just wanted somebody, he wanted somebody to explain. I think it might be.
Yeah.
I
And
understand why it is that an individual might need it or the board might need it, depending on what the circumstances are. But I would say that I don't think that they didn't say no forever. It was no for tonight.
Right. I think you're right, Kathy. And it was simply they didn't give it to any of the regulatory boards. So within our town, there's, 3, 4 regulatory boards that have immense power.
Sewer,
and you're
water,
one of them.
planning, zoning, conservation. There was,
Even of those, planning is not I mean, I suppose it's a regulatory board, but the conservation probably is one of with the health board, is one of the most powerful boards. So they actually voted against giving boards for that. But they did say, because the ethics laws are really so strict in the extreme, they are strict in the extreme, but it's against that. Mr. Franey, I was at the meeting tonight, and Mr. Franey gave the example that you really got to follow the money. That's the whole issue. I mean, if you think that, you know, if somebody is making money and, you know, going on one board, volunteering on one board and making money going against another board, there might be an issue for that. But against that, there's a whole lot of exceptions. One of the exceptions is if you do it, you know, on behalf of yourself, that you want to do something. But also, we can actually ask for status. Now, I have not, you know, I said that I didn't need status. Apparently, people thought it was aimed at lawyers. You know, if there was a real conflict, guys, I would simply resign and work for whoever was going to pay me, you know. But I don't think that's an issue. But I said no. But as against that, I will speak on behalf of anybody who does want to ask for special municipal status. I'll go with them to the selectmen and point out why we might want to do it. But you know that. So I don't know if that's an issue, and I'm not sure if that really is. You know, if anybody wants to comment. Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion, we adjourn?
Second?
Okay, all those in favour?
Aye.
Okay, and on video, we have to thank John Aiello of Troop 41 for videotaping our meeting tonight.
He did an excellent job.
Yes, thank you very much.
Can we hire him?
We should, yeah.
I think he gets paid in pizza.
Is that yes.
You didn't want this, Jerry. I think we